And we're live.
Yeah. What's good? Another week. We got some new topics. It's your man Bo and my homie.
Grip, get it. What's happening?
What's happening, bro? So let's jump right into it, man. Demi Lovato. What happened? What
Big
happened,
news.
man?
Bro, she fell off the wagon. So what?
Bro,
She's been clean for 5 years?
she had been clean for 6 years. Well, mostly clean. They said she wasn't.
Yeah, clean enough. On the other side of what was going towards destruction. Now,
Yeah, and so she's been a Disney star for a long time, and Angelica was telling me about that because she had an addiction to cocaine since she was 14 years old.
fuck.
So
You think she
she so
developed
she's
that at Disney?
yeah, and Helica was saying it was because number one she had to stay slim. They didn't want her gaining no weight. And number two, all of that acting requires long hours of them kids, man. So I don't know if she has any other abuse in her background, but this is pretty bad. And there's only been like a handful. Well, I can't say a handful, but in recent history, there hasn't been as many drug overdose deaths. I mean, you got Kurt Cobain, you got Amy Winehouse, um, Michael Jackson, and Prince. So, and Michael Jackson and Prince were older. You know,
Yeah, I was
they
about
were.
to say those weren't necessarily drug related, weren't they? Wasn't Prince sick?
Well, Prince, yeah, I don't know. I know he had an addiction to Percocet. They
I
said
mean,
his body started to break down on him, but he didn't want to stop performing.
there was.
So they were saying that he got pretty heavy into it, and I thought I read something that said that contributed to his death. I think it messed with his liver pretty badly.
That makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, and Michael Jackson was drug related. So there haven't been like, in my opinion, there haven't been as many. I mean, as you think about like the rock and roll era, where a lot of those guys in the '60s and '70s, but she overdosed on meth, bro. Like that's some pretty
Yeah.
heavy stuff. You know.
Meth and heroin, the big two, those are definitely like the drugs that probably cause the most harm. And when you were saying she was doing coke earlier, and it's like she's moved on to meth, and with poor people that's usually a money thing, but for her, I think it's more of just a harder drug.
Yeah, it would just seem that she has a lot of pain, And I know there was one point in her career where they were really kind of like getting into her weight. They were saying she was heavy, and I know that affected her. So I'm just looking right now. They said the first time she tried cocaine was actually in 2009. So scratch that. I was wrong. She was 17 at the time, working at the Disney Channel, and she says a couple friends introduced her to it. She was scared because her mom told her heart would burst if she did it, but she did it anyway, and she loved it.
That sounds like about most people's experience.
You're like, yeah,
Yeah, I
and
thought my heart would burst, and then it was pretty cool. Like,
right.
it's
And
funny what you say about the friends thing too, because if you read this article, that's kind of like where it's getting to. Is it sounds like she's been hanging with the wrong people since she fired that life coach.
yeah, so we were talking about before we got started that she had a life coach that was keeping her sober, and she fired the life coach, and then I think something with her breakup with Wilder Valderrama kind of also added
And
to
of
this. I
course, how
think
can
that's
it
where it
not?
started.
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, how can it not? A relationship's got to affect that shit.
Exactly. And I guess they were saying her birth dad, so she doesn't, I don't think she's close to her father or her real father. Her birth father was an alcoholic and an addict, so it's already in her bloodline.
Oh man, you spelling out like textbook what the causes of people doing drugs, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
top it all off when you're not hanging out with the right people. And saying here that the guitarist of her band, who she's really close with, and he's been in her band for a long time, came forward and was talking about all the people that were there with her, and said they're not her friends and they're the kind of people that are bringing her down into this sort of shit. And it says here that she OD'd. They gave her Narcan, which is we could do a whole article on Narcan because there's all these different things about it. But basically, Narcan is a drug that they've been trying to move it towards where in a lot of states, I think it's California, I'm assuming it's probably where this happened. I think it is available this way. Regular people can get it, if especially like if they're heroin users and stuff.
And
Cops
a
are
lot
starting
of
to
people
care.
have a problem with it because they say, it's aiding addiction instead of fighting it,
If you've ever seen Narcan work, that's very not true.
No, I haven't. I have no. Maybe you can talk about that. Obviously, I mean, you got a background if you've seen it. Tell
No,
me what it's like.
so it's like it shoots out like a little mist in your nose. That's how it'll be administered because like you're gonna be like passed out or something already, but your mucous membranes will take it, and so that's the route of administration, and that makes it work pretty quick. And it's really just it reverse acts on opiates. So a lot of times like it'll be used like if you come upon like a random person that's like out and you can't wake them up and you don't think they're drunk, just give them Narcan. They might be on that, and a lot of times that actually works. It's really nasty though, because not like it's bad for you or anything, but like here's the thing: if you were just out, stopped breathing from doing too much heroin, and you're a heroin user, and someone or whatever your opiate is, and you're given Narcan, all that's immediately taken away from you. You're gonna feel pretty shitty when you wake up. You're probably gonna throw up too, and so no one's happy when they get it. You don't feel good afterwards, but it will bring you back. But it'll take away all that pain relief you were just getting and bring you right back to where you were.
So, what are your thoughts on it as far as it
I
being
think people should be allowed
administered?
to have it.
Huh?
I think people should be allowed to get it. I don't see how that aids in my me and my dad got in an argument, very similar argument. They had a program at my high school where if girls had a teen pregnancy, you could have there was like a daycare program at the school where kids would take the class and they would learn to take care of kids, and you could leave your kids there, and then you could go to school and finish it. And my dad was saying that was, oh, it's aiding teen pregnancy, or it's like making it like a reward. I'm like, that's a lifeline when you're about to go to the fucking
Hey,
floor.
that is so funny because that's what Angelica came up in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she was a teen mom, and that's how she got through school.
It's a great thing. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
It's
no,
not.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
people are trying to say like, oh, it rewards it. I'm like, I wouldn't call that exactly a reward. I don't know where the fuck you're at, where that's a reward. That's a lifeline. That's you want. So now you got this teen mom, and you're calling a reward. I call that you're not setting her up to succeed to provide for this child.
Right.
We should as a society, we should do everything we can to set kids up to succeed.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I don't think the Narcan is a bad thing. I think that it's saving more lives than it's hurting. But in a case like this, a lot of the comments I read were saying that they were mad that the friend had, like, it was really weird. People were like, "Oh, why did this is horrible that she has this? She should have to learn the hard way." I'm like, so she should die? I don't I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Well,
don't think if that's your opinion, that's what kind of person are you?
I
Like,
sympathize with the idea that her friend just had Narcan. That means he knows his drugs are bad or something like that. I see where you're coming from in a sense. I think that just goes back to she's not hanging out with the right people. But thank God this guy had Narcan along with bad drugs.
and you don't know. And see, my thing is, nobody knows who this friend is. This friend could be somebody who's been by her side forever since she was like a teenager and knows what kind of. Because remember, I told you I had a buddy of mine who looked after me in college, even though I did really dumb shit. But he would always have my back, and he was always there. So this could be a person who like knew this was coming and was like, man, let me just keep this shit because I don't want her to die.
Right. Right.
So people got to be like, you got to relax. If you don't know the story, you can't just go assuming, oh, this was some chick that got her OD'd, and then luckily, like, she kept that because she knew she was gonna get her to OD. Like, you can't think like that. That's not a good way to be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
but I was also reading that she's had issues for a while. I'm actually looking at a timeline of her abuse issues. In 2010, she beat up a female backup dancer when she was 18. She's in and out of rehab. I didn't know she had all these issues.
She's like Nikki Sixx, man.
Yeah, she's got some issues. She invited two random people to her hotel and got drunk, and then had to perform on American Idol the next day.
What the fuck?
Yeah, she's kind of wild, man. But see, we talk about this several times, right? People getting fame when they're so young. I'm telling you,
It's not good for you.
that's not the thing, man. Because I was looking at an interview with Bad Baby today, and she's just off the chain, man. Like, some of these people go so far left, you can't bring them back. Do you think she'll be able to recover and get back into her career and get cleaner? What do you think? Just based on everything I've told you so far.
It's happened before. I mean, she's got the right people in her corner. Right now, it maybe I still stand by like you, the people you're around, the 5 people you're around, the most ends up making up like the way you are. And if you elevate the people you're around, you'll elevate your life. And it sounds like, if you're hanging around with, one of the biggest things they do whenever when you're getting off drugs is stop being around the people that you did drugs with.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what I think it all comes down to is who she's around, what she's surrounding herself with, because it's real easy to get lost, and you know what I mean, just like she is.
Yeah, and I like what you said. She did it once, she can do it again. I think, I don't. I've been lucky enough to not have a lot of addicts in my life. And I talk to Angelica a lot because she's dealt with it more than I has, and she tells me that like it's the weirdest thing because some of the addicts that she's known are the most incredible people, but they just have this like this demon, and we all have demons, but an addict typically has very loud ones that make a lot of noise in their life, um, and so she's always very sympathetic, and I'm learning to be that way because I never had really been around it until recently. I had a situation where I was around it and I saw how bad it can be. So
Oh, people become different. I mean, I'll leave off on a point I thought was pretty interesting. I saw on NPR once they were talking about heroin addicts and people who've lost people to heroin addicts, and talking about studies on like why it affects some people differently and some people get addicted and don't. And it's interesting because we live in a world where of abundance now, where we've been evolved for thousands of years, where and trying to get something where things were rarer, and they say the kind of funny thing about people that are addicts to these sorts of things are people that were actually, if you break it down, are people that would have been more genetically gifted in the wild because they would have had a stronger drive to be doing the rewarding behaviors. Now, like having that stronger of a drive is a hindrance because we can get that stuff as much as we want.
that's what's funny about that is a lot of addicts, and this is another thing my lovely wife taught me. A lot of addicts transfer their addiction. So like Eminem was on pills real bad for about 5 or 6 years, like real bad, to the point where he almost died. Right?
Yeah.
He transferred that addiction. He even admitted it. He transferred it to running. And he said he would run so much he would get horrible, horrible shin splints, and like they would try to tell him he should stop and all this stuff, but he would keep doing it because he took the one addiction and gave it to another place. And I've also heard she was also telling me that a lot of addicts become religious. They become super religious because supposedly when you're very religious and you're very close to the church and you do a lot of testimony and stuff, it releases the same chemicals in your brain that getting the drug does. So that's why some people become like super hardcore religious because they basically just transfer their addiction.
A big part
So
of the 12-step program, which is like what they use in every addiction thing now, because that was where most of the stuff came from, was when in the 1920s when they started trying to get people to quit alcohol, started realizing like this is an addiction and stuff, that concept, and to this day the 12-step program, a big part of it is like one of the things is it doesn't have to be God or Christianity. There's a lot of Christian swing to it, but you have to accept a higher power, and everybody that I've ever talked to that's done it is like it's an unskippable step.
yeah, yeah. And to me, like I know some pretty religious people. I'm not. It's not my favorite thing, but I like if you're in a church as opposed to out in a gutter somewhere doing I'm cool with that. Like you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
exactly.
So all right, we'll wrap on that one.
All right, I'm all good with this Demi Lovato.